So first of all, functions are basically something that the task that you need to perform a number of times, or something that is required to be run, that involves a long code, and something that you want that it should be, you don't want to write the number of lines over and over again. So you can put that entire code into a function and run that. So you have to just call a function in a single line and the task would be done. It's just like we use other functions like max, min, average, sum, all those functions. These are also functions, but the functions that we would be using are user defined functions which are created by us. And Python provides us the ability, the it provides us a facility to create the functions, and we can create them on our own in whatever way we want to, whatever complex things we want to run, we can create a function for that and can perform the task over it. So what is the syntax of a function? How do we define a function? When I say define, so the keyword comes up like def. So over here on my screen, if you see, def is how we start writing a function. We are defining a function or we are creating a function. Generally, it's like we define a function. So we use def as a keyword. We give a name to the function, any name. You can give any name to the function. Then we provide parentheses, which are small brackets. In those parentheses, we provide the parameters. Parameters are nothing, these are just the variables on which the function would run, on which the function would provide us the results. Post that, we write our code, whatever operations we need to perform on that function, and then we return the values from that function. This is how the syntax of a function, defining a function, works like. When we call a function, let's say my function name, how do we call a function? To call a function, we just type the function name and pass the parameters. That's it. That's how a function is called and that's how a function is created. Let's say I want to create a function to calculate, let's say, define a function to multiply three numbers. Fine, let's take this one. So how do we do? Like I said, we define a function. So to define a function, I start with define. Let's say multiply. I provide parameters to it. So three numbers. So I'll provide three variables to it. Let's say A, B, and C. It ends up with a colon. Then I put an enter. Now what I need to perform is I need to multiply these three numbers. So I'll just directly return the value. So what I'll do is return A into B into C. That's it. When I run this, this executes successfully. Now how I would get the value? Let's say A is equal to int input, enter the first number. Let's say we are taking an input from the user. So should be, we have C. So this would be my second number. My third number. Now once we have taken the input from the user, we need to multiply these numbers. I need not to do this thing. Let's say result is equal to A into B into C and print result. This is how we will do in a normal way. So it will ask me for a number 2, 3, 1. The answer should be 6. That's how we get 6. But instead of doing this entire effort, we can do it simply. Let's say we have all these numbers with us. I have already created a function with me. What I'll do is I'll type multp, my function name, and pass the parameters over here. That's it. So 2, 3, 1. Sorry. So over here the spellings are wrong. It should be return. So when I run this, now when I'm passing the variables, it asks me for the numbers. So the answer is 6. So simply I have to just run a single line of code and I'll get the result. Let's take another example. Let's say I need to calculate the sum of numbers. I'm taking small examples to explain you. Define a function calculate the sum of numbers. So how would we do? Let's say I give the name of the function as sum. I pass parameters a, b. Let's take two numbers only. Let's take sum of two numbers. Now what I want to return is a plus b. That's it. So let's say this is a function that I have created. I can write my code here as well, but I'm defining a function separately for your understanding. Let's say we take two numbers, int input, enter the first number. So b, enter the second number. Now simply print sum of a and b is equal to, I just pass it to a comma b. That's it. Let's say first number is 2, second number is 3, the sum should be 5. So that's how, or right now I can simply do this way. Let's say I don't do this thing, I just pass these numbers. This is just for your understanding what I am doing. So this is something like this. When I say sum a comma b, so let's say it asks for 2, 3 and the result is 5. Or I can do simply like this thing. To test my function, I say 2 comma 3, so it gives me the result. So it is something that you have just created for yourself and you need to get the result immediately, instantly. This thing would be saved in your Python library, Python directory. Whenever you will run this function, it will give you the result. Let's go into something complex. So what is the factorial of a number? Anyone? What is factorial 5? Anyone can give me the result? Just speak it out. What is factorial 5? Or 5 factorial? What is 5 factorial, guys?
120.
Sorry?
120.
I'm not able to hear you. I'm sorry. Can you be a little louder?
120, sir.
120, right. So factorial of a number is like n into n minus 1 till the time you come to 0. That's how a factorial of a number is calculated. Let's say factorial of 5. So how it is calculated is 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. So this is 6 by 4, 12. So that's how the factorial is calculated. Understand? Similarly, let's define a function for this thing, but also there are two conditions. Factorial always, it's mathematics, you must have studied. Factorial of 1 is 1. Factorial of 0, it is also 1. So let's define a function for this. So let's say I give the name to the function as fact, short to factorial, anything. You can give any name to the function. So I'm taking one parameter only. Let's say the parameter is n or a, whatever you want to take. You can take the name of the parameter, is up to you. The name of the function is up to you. You can give it any way that you feel like is good for you, is good for your calculation and for your ease of remembrance. Now, when I say that the factorial of 1 is 1, so if I say return 1, rather, let's put a condition. If n equal to 1 or n is equal to 0, then it should return 1. Else, return n multiplied by n minus 1. So this is my function. So what happens is, if I enter 1 or 0, if I pass a 1 or 0 to fact, it will return me 1 as a result, which is what we require. So why we have done this thing? See, over here, if I just give this thing, fine. So if I pass factorial 1, so it will be 1 into 1 minus 1, 0. So 1 into 0 is 0, which is factorial 1. I'll explain why I am giving this condition, why it is required. This first two lines of the code, why it is required. So let's say this is what factorial is by its definition. It multiplies in the decreasing order. It takes a number, reduces it by 1, multiplies by it, reduces 1, multiplies it with it. That's how it goes. Let's say I want to find out factorial of 1. Pardon my spellings. So it's a factorial of 1. So as per definition, what it would do is, it would take 1, multiply it by 1 minus 1. So this will be 1 multiplied by 0, which is 0. But factorial of 1 in mathematics, it is 1 only. Understand? And if I say factorial of 0, so it will be 0 multiplied by 0 minus 1. So it will be equal to 0 multiplied by minus 1, which will be 0. But factorial of 0 is 1 in mathematics. So that's why we have defined the function like this, so that to handle if any error, normally if any error comes up, because Python doesn't know that factorial of 1 is 1 or factorial of 0 is 0. So we have to define it explicitly. So such conditions we need to take care of. These things will come up because you are defining the function for factorial. See, if I would say, let's say max of 2 comma 3. See, max is a function that is already defined in Python. Fine. Let's say sum of 3 comma 4. So it is already defined in Python. It knows what to do. Fine. Let's say I find out factorial of 1. What error it says? Name factorial is not defined. Let's say we take short format, short of it. Let's say if that is defined in Python, it will say fact is not defined. So we are explicitly creating a function to calculate the factorial of a number. So this is the function that we have created. I'll put it here once again. So this is for all the exception handling that we have in case of factorials of a number. So if a number is 1 or a number is 0, the factorial of 1 and 0 is 1. That's why we say return 1 explicitly. We are returning 1 for it. Else, in every other case, what we are doing is we are multiplying the number with 1 less of that number. So let's run this thing. So it ran successful. Let's say now I want to calculate factorial of 5. So it is 20, sorry. So oh, sorry, there should be a for loop over here. So rather for loop, what I can do is, yeah, we can put a for loop for I in range n to n minus 1. Let's say we take this range. So you know range, what range is. So let's say from 1, because our factorial is this thing and we are going to 1 less than what we do. So I have exceeded it by 1 more value. So all this thing will go into indentation so that we don't get the indentation error. So what we are doing is, so I'll explain you what it is. Let me just check it out. What is happening here? Okay, this is not working. What's the problem? Let's see. एक मैं ज़रा factorial, let me just check what is factorial. That is fine. Oh, sorry. So what we are actually doing is, मैं multiply गलत कर रहा हूँ. Why? Because so if n is equal to 1 or n is equal to 0, it will return 1. Else it should return n multiplied by factorial of n minus 1. So see what actually is happening. I'm sorry for all the confusion, because at times it becomes tedious and difficult, or you forget things, how a factorial actually works, and when I'm teaching I have other things in my mind as well. So what we are doing over here is this line. Let's take it step by step. This line explains to handle a condition that if I pass fact 1, it should give me 1. If I pass fact 0, it should give me 1. So when n is 1 or n is 0, this says return 1. Else it says return this thing. What does this mean? So it means like if it is not 0, let's say it is 5, what we are taking. So let's say it is 5. So what it does is it picks 5, gives me 5, it multiplies it by factorial of 5 minus 1, which is 4. Right. Now it will check what is factorial of 4. It will again go back to my function fact 4. It will take fact as 4. It will check it is 1, no. It is 0, no. It will go over here. What it will do is, it will do, next step would be 5 into, so it is n is 4, multiplied it by 4 factorial of 4 minus 1, which is 3. Now again it will check factorial 3 kya hai, what is factorial 3. It will go over here, it will check it is not 1, it is not 0, it will skip my if loop, it will come to the else loop. It will check n is 3, so it will put like this. Next line it would be 5 into 4 into factorial of 3 would be 3 into factorial of 3 minus 1, which is 2. Now again it will check 5 into 4 into 3 into. Now what is factorial of 2? It is not 1, it is not 0. If loop gets skipped up, it comes into else loop, it will check 2. So n is 2, it will put 2 multiplied it by factorial of 1. Now what it will do is, it will check for factorial of 1. It will put 1 over here, it will check n is 1, yes. So it will directly just run the for loop, if loop, and give me 1. So it does like this, f 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, and this results come out to be 120. So that's how a function is defined, and that's how we calculate whatever we are passing to a function. Any doubts in defining a function or creating a function? Was factorial part clear
No,
to
sir.
you guys?
Clear, sir.
Okay. Abhishek, Uday, Harshita.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Harshita, Abhishek. You have stupidest of the question also, you come to me. No worries. Nobody is going to judge you. I am not going to judge you. Anything that comes up, just ask me. Okay. I take that as no. Everything is clear. Let's go ahead. Let's pick up some examples. I'll give you something. Let us try it out. How things go around. And Kaggle is a good website where you can check out things. W3 is actually a good website, but Kaggle is something where you get to experience a lot many things. Let's take this thing. Fine. Let's take this thing. Sorry. So okay. So adding a row below. So my task is write a function that inputs a number and prints the multiplication table for that number. So how the thinking process goes about this thing? How would you think on this thing that I have to achieve this thing? First of all, let's take a number. Let's say we need to print the table for multiplication table for 5. So how it goes about? It's like 5 into 1, 5 2s are, 5 3s are, 5 4s are, 5 6 are, 5 7s are, like this. So what is happening is my multiplicand, my factor, my multiplication thing, 5 remains constant, and these things are keep on increasing one by one. So let's say define table. I'll pass a number to it because my number remains constant. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a range for I in range 1 to 11, because I'm taking from 1 to 10, I have to go to 5 10s are 50. So if I take 11, then only I'll get 10, because that range works like this: starting point and then end minus 1. That's how we take the range. So what we are doing is we are multiplying n multiplied by I for every I, right? Understand this point. I'm multiplying it n times I. So let's say I return this thing. So this will give me, every time when this thing runs out, we are just checking it out if this thing gives me this result or not. Understand my point? What's the thinking process? How you go about completing a given task or completing a given situation that comes in front of you. How to go about that thing. So over here, this line will give me I is equal to, first it will give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So every time when the for loop will run, Understand? Every time when the for loop will run, it will give me 5 multiplied by 1. Then it will give me 5 multiplied by 2. Then it will give me 5 multiplied by 3. But the point is, this will give me just the final value at the end. I'm not saving that thing anywhere. Understand? I'm not saving that value anywhere. So every time when the loop runs, it gets updated. It gets updated. Understand? So how to handle that thing? That it doesn't get saved anywhere. I mean to say, it doesn't give you the final result. It should give you all the results. Understand? So what I can do is, let's say it will give me the result. I have to check it out how this thing works out. So this is how it says that this is what we are doing right now. So the number multiplication divide multiplication and it divides. Which is taking the same thing only. So let's say return n into I. Let's try doing this thing. Let me just remove this part because it won't work. It will give me an error. Let's try out finding the result. Table for 5. So it gives me just one result because it is taking one only and the loop is not working somehow. So I have to check that out, why that loop is not working. So what we'll do is, let's say not return. Return gives me a single value. Always remember, return will only provide you a single value. Always it will give you a single value. Always. So to avoid that thing, to get result for everything, I need to print that thing. How this thing works? Let's iterate this thing in a very easier manner and let's try to print that value. So I'll use f string. So what I'll do is, I'll take n, multiplied it by I, say equal to with a space and put a comma over here. So this is how I get the table. This is how you can print a table for a number. So quite simple way, not difficult. You know what f string is, guys? You understand what an f string is? I have already explained you in the very first lecture when we were discussing the data types. Yeah, Harshita. You were saying something? Anyone? Any doubts? See,
No, sir.
okay. See, from here onwards, we would be taking examples only, lots of examples, lots of hands-on things. So I suggest you guys, you pick up Jupyter Notebook in every session and start practicing alongside me. Otherwise, it would be difficult for you guys. Please understand my point. So this is how, what we are taking is, I'll explain you again. I know that my table will run from 1 to 10. Understand? It will always run from 1 to 10. So I took starting from 1 instead of 0. Let's take 0. So this is how it will go ahead. 5 zeros are, 5 ones are, 5 twos are, 5 threes are. So it works like this. But okay, fine. But the main point is this range. 10th, I have to go till 10. So I'll take 11 over here. Range, always remember what range works like, how slicing works like. It's the same thing. Starting point and end minus 1. Now when I'm printing this thing, so I have used an f string so that I just need to have these things over here. Nothing else. So when I put an f string, what it does is, whatever I'm passing in in curly brackets, whatever I'm passing in curly brackets, it takes the exact value of that variable in that particular iteration. You understand an iteration? What an iteration is, when this loop will run for the very first time, that would be the first iteration. So in the first iteration, my n remains same. Over here, n is 5. It will remain 5 only throughout the cycle. It is not changing. In this loop, only value of I is changing. So in first iteration, my I is 0. In second iteration, I is 1. In third, so f string is something where you create a string only. When I'm saying string, it's no calculation, nothing. It's just you are printing something, you are calculating something, you want to display something as a string. Understand? Want to display something as a string, that's what f string does. The actual result is this part only, n times I. Fine. This is how you calculate the you multiply a number. Let's say table for 10. So this is how the tables would work. You have already defined this thing. Once it is defined, you need not to bother. It will calculate things on its own. Let's take another example. Okay, you will take these as let's say so these are quite tough ones, but let's try it out. So let's say we are, so this is factorial, like we did factorial, we have done factorial already. So let's try it out. Try out, let's say, write permutation and combinations for a number. Fine. Let's take a little more challenging task. So write a program to implement the formula for permutations and combinations, right? So what we are doing is, what is a permutation and combination? So the formula for permutation is, see, this is the formula for permutation. You have factorial of a number divided by factorial of n minus r. So what it is basically, you have, let's say we do like this, NPR. So I'm not able to write it over here. I'll show you as an example. So yeah, so over here, this is the formula over here. Yeah, so we write it as NPR, where it is n factorial divided by n minus r factorial. So for this, what we need to do is, we need to have a function for factorial and then calculate the permutation of a number. How that thing works out, let's take it. Where is my Python notebook? Here it is. So we already have the function for factorial. So this is my factorial function, not this one, this one. I'll copy this thing directly over here, because I have already explained you how factorials run. Now this part is giving me the factorial of the number, right? Understand? This already gives me the factorial of a number. Now what if I basically want to find out the permutation? So what I'll do is, I'll just remove the return from here. Fine. What I'll do is, I'll return factorial of number divided by factorial of n minus r, but I need r over here. So for that, I need to create another function for it. So let's say I define another function as perm, and I'll pass two variables over here, n and r, because I'm calculating the factorial of a number. Always remember that thing. You can call another function within a function. So like I'm defining a new function perm, I can call function fact over here easily. Understand? I'll do that right now in front of you. So let's say return So what I'll do is, I'll do fact of n divided by fact of n minus r. That's it. My function is defined. I have to do nothing else. It is done. Now let's say we calculate factorial of, let's first check what is permutation of, let's say 5p2. Let's say 5p2. I'm just checking what the result is. So this is the one. Result कहाँ पर आएगा? I have to let's calculate it on our own. So what is the result for 5p2? So I'm doing 5p2. This will be factorial of 5 divided by factorial of 5 minus 2, which is 3. So this will be equal to 120 divided by 3 factorial is 6. So this will be equal to 20. This should be my result of, if I pass perm 5 comma 2. Let's see what result. Oh, I am getting an error. Let's see what is the error. So it says unsupported operands star int for int and none type. Okay, I'm not returning anything over here, so it doesn't understand that what it is doing. So when I do this, see, I get the result as 20. So the point to explain you this thing is that I can define a function within a function. Now let's say, what is a combination? What's the formula for combination? I mean, I already had in previous screen. Let's check that out. Yeah. So get me this thing. Define a function. You already have a factorial function. Write a function to write the combination of the number. Please go ahead and give me this result. N factorial over n minus r factorial over r factorial. Just write this thing for me, please. So this is how I wrote the factorial, permutation. Let's say I write combination for n comma r. What should I write? Just put it in print statement. In the chat box. I am waiting for your results. Just write it in the chat box. So what should I write over here? See, the combination is defined as, so let's say 5c2. This will be equal to 5 factorial divided by 2 factorial multiplied by 3 factorial. So this is what you need to write over here in the function. What would you write? Please write it in the chat. And you have 3 minutes of time. It's 3:41. 3:45. Take 4 minutes. Just type in the chat. How would you define this function? What would my return statement look like for combination of NCR? How it would look like? I'll just increase the size for your ease. Okay, I got a chat already. Okay. Factorial. Okay, factorial n divided by factorial r into factorial of n minus r. Okay, factorial n divided by factorial of n minus r into factorial of r. Okay, Abhishek, Uday, are you guys understanding, or you're not able to get things? Because I'm expecting answers from everyone.
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah.
No, I'm clear with that.
Okay. Okay, let's try this thing out, what you guys have written. So it is factorial of n divided by factorial of r multiplied by factorial of n minus r. Just a simple formula. How we do everywhere, it's a simple formula. So print permutation of numbers is comma. So control C, control V, combination of numbers is like this. Okay, let's run this. Let's first calculate what's this 5c2 do. So 5c2, this will be 5 factorial is 120 divided by 2 factorial is 2 multiplied by 5 and 3 factorial is 6. So it should be 10, 12. It should give me 12, right? Let's see. 360. Okay, so I see what is happening. BODMAS is happening over here. So let's divide it by this whole thing. One bracket is missing. I'll put another bracket and run this. See. So what happened was, why I got 360, it was because it was doing 120 divided by 6 by 2 and then dividing it by 5. So maybe something like that. It happened that way because it doesn't understand BODMAS until you define it. It will start taking in a normal fashion. It will first divide and then multiply. That's how it goes. What we want is we need this thing to execute first, and then it should be divided. The numerator should be divided by the denominator. So that's why you have to define your formulas precisely, perfectly, so that the results come out nicely, properly. So this is how the functions work. You can define a function within a function, but always remember, function should always return a value. There should be a return value from a function. Otherwise, function is of no use at all. You won't get any results from a function. Let's take another last example for the day, and I'll leave these things for you to practice. So, Uday has given me the result. Yes, so all of you are correct on this front. Abhishek, you are also good at this thing. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is also interesting. Let's say, write a function, a simple one, to convert a decimal number to a binary number. What is a binary number, first of all? So, and what is a decimal number? the first condition is, let's say the number should be greater than 1. So we put a loop saying that if number is greater than 1, then we call the function. So decimal to binary, we check that number, dividing it by 2 and convert it into let's say from decimal to binary. Let's say एक second, I'll let you know how decimal to binary works. Okay, so let's say divide the decimal number by 2 and store the remainder in an array. So divide the quotient by 2, repeat step 2 until we get the quotient equal to 0. Okay, so this is what to get a binary number is. We keep on dividing the number by 2 and we check out and we start saving the quotient. Fine, we start saving the remainder. How the remainder is calculated, I'll show you. First of all, you need to understand what certain operators do like. So let's say I divide 5 by 2. When I'm dividing 5 by 2, my remainder is 2, right? This will give me 2.5, but this will give me remainder as 2. So when I'm putting backslash twice, that is, it gives me a remainder. Understand? So when I'm doing 5 by 2, number is 2.5, the result is 2.5. I don't want this 0.5. So that's why I'm converting it into binary number by taking just the remainder. So let's say 7 by 2. So it will just give me the remainder. It will remove the decimal part. That's how, it should be, 1 should be the remainder over here. But this is, let me just check out what remainder is. Yeah. So for remainder, I use the modulus operator, and this is something when I'm dividing it by 2, but I'm just saving the quotient. Quotient is something on which I have divided, not the remainder part. If I divide 7 by 2, I'll say 2 threes are 6. So 3 is the quotient and remainder is 1. So when I'm taking just the quotient and saving it, that makes it into a binary number. So let's see what this guy is doing. So this guy is doing over here, it's defining a function, this decimal to binary. It's defining a function as decimal to binary and passing a parameter as number. So it says if number is greater than 1, then perform decimal to binary number divide by 2. And then print number %2, end it with this thing. Let's try this thing out, what this thing does. Let's try this thing out. So let's say I run this. So what it is doing is, it is taking this number 11, it is dividing it by 2. So what we'll get is 5. It is dividing 5 again by 2. What you get is 2. It is dividing 2 again by 2. What you get is 1. It is dividing 1 by 2. What you get is 0. Till the time you get 0, you keep on dividing the number, and what you print is the binary number. What it is doing is, it is dividing the number by 2 and picking the remainder. So even I'm not able to understand this thing. Let's try what is happening. So it is just dividing it by 2. Now when I get 11, so number %2, so 11 %2, it gave me 1 as the binary. Now it again divided, I guess, 1 by 2, so it picks up 1 again. 1 %2, but decimal to binary prints the binary number of a given decimal number using recursion. Okay, I understand what recursion is. So if number is greater than 1, perform. Okay, fine. What it is doing is, let's say this number is 11. Now number 11 is greater than 1. Okay, this statement runs true. What it does is decimal to binary 11 modulus 2. So 11 divide by 2 to get the quotient. I get 5. So it checks out 5. So now 5 is greater than, it checks out 5. So now number is 5. Now this turns out to be 5. So what it does is, it divides 11 by 2, because over here my number is 11 only. It divides 11 by 2 and it gets, so first, then it is doing 11 percentage 2. So I get 1. So it prints 1 for me over here. It prints this 1 for me. Now my number is 5. This thing turned out to be 5, right? So it will check if 5 is greater than 1. Yes. It will divide 5 by 5 slash 2. What it does is 5, 2. I get 2. Now it is doing 2 percentage 2. So 2 percentage 2. It will give me 0. Right, it gives me 0, so it prints 0 over here. Now my number is 2 over here, because this turned out to be 2. So now 2 is greater than 1, right? So it will do 2 slash 2. What it will give me? So it will give me this thing I am editing here only. So 2 slash 2 gives me 1. Now 2 percentage 2, 1 percentage 2. It gives me 1. So it prints 1 over here. This one. Second last one. Now I take 1. Now 1 is not greater than 1. Okay. So it doesn't run this loop. It directly comes over here. It runs 1 percentage 2 again and gives me 1 as the result. Now that's why this is the final result. That's how we reach out. This is something new for me as well. Generally I don't convert a decimal number to a binary number, but yes, it's a good task. So that's how functions are performed. That's how functions are run in Python. That's how functions are created in Python. And I hope it is understandable why do we require functions. So yeah, Abhishek.
But can you go to that previous page?
Yeah.
Like we performed that function from decimal to the binary. So the result on the top, that's showing 1011. So we got 1 1, and in between we got 2, and again we got 0. So like why our result is showing different from the top one?
No, it is the same. I'll show you again. So when I'm running this thing, what it gives me, my first number is 11. It checks 11 is greater than 1. It divides 11 by 2 and gives me the result as 1. It printed
1.
11 by 2. And the number is 5. So the number comes out to be 5.
Yeah.
Now, when number 11 is divided by 2, here my number remains the same. It is not updated because it is outside the loop. It is outside if loop, so the number remains 11 over here. So when I'm performing 11 percentage 2,
that is 1.
So that gives me 1. So, wait a second. This is causing confusion over here. So let's take it again. So 11 is greater than 1. When I'm performing this thing 11 by slash 2, what it gives me, I get 5 over here. So this thing gets updated to 5. But over here, outside the loop, outside if loop, number is 5 only. Number is 11 only. So what it does is, it performs 11 percentage 2 and gives me 1. So this is the first one that I got. Now this loop again runs with number updated to 5 because I have 5 over here. So it checks whether 5 is
Yeah.
it's whether 5 is greater than 1. Yes. So it does this thing over here now. Below it runs 5//2 and gives me 2. But the number is 5. Still the number is 5. It performs 5% 2. 5% 2 and I get 0. कहाँ गया? हाँ, sorry, I get 1. Okay, you were right. So it should be
As result, what we read in that search engine, we only take the reminder at the end, not the quotient. So if that's the reminder for every single function, what we repeated, the reminder is the bottom one, what we are performing.
yeah.
That's as per my knowledge. So I'm not sure if I'm correct or wrong, correct or right, but the one which you read in the search engine, that's telling like we only consider the reminder in the function. So the reminder for the every single step is the bottom part, which is divided by 2. So 1, 0, and double. I think that's the right one.
So number is 1, 0,
1 and 1. Because that's the reminder part of every single function.
I'm getting the number as 1. Outside the loop I'm getting the number as 12. Then I'll get back to you on this thing.
Okay,
I'll
sure.
explain you this thing. I'll explain you. I take your point, I'll explain you this thing.
This.
But meanwhile,
Yeah.
so today by evening I'll be sharing you a list of